started 3/14. And this is, so we want to get organized. That's what we're doing now. We want to talk about responsibilities versus projects, etc. We want to talk about independence levels and goal of being organized, active. And then there's also just like Jorge's responsibilities. General values. And I think there's also a component here of buddy teams versus individual work, which is also important to cover. Before all of this, I want to cover the overall priorities briefly. So I think this should get us enough, and then we want to talk about training new recruits. So I think that's basically, and obviously we have lots of other stuff to work on. We'll put this all over here under other. It's subgroup priorities, it's just me and you. Okay. That sound good? that sound good?
Yeah, absolutely, sounds good.
All right, let me make sure I'm sharing my screen. Oh no, it's not working. Hold on one sec, let me rejoin. Okay, so I'm in the Hangout. I'm gonna try to share my screen again. All right, there it goes. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Not yet. Now I can see it. Yes.
Okay. So for overall priorities, what we have is the reminder that we are not like doing the overall priorities, right? So the primary role of all general support is to support me in the overall priorities.
Yes.
Right. So we're not doing the overall priorities today, right? We did overall priorities yesterday, but the day before we didn't. So it's just important to note that this is not. Let me actually get into our notes here. Wait, why is all Nelly stuff in here? Let's get rid of Nelly. Notes creating quarter mailbox. I mean, this is just like, I don't know, is this an old doc or what is this? We don't need it in this, do you?
No, I copied that because I was working on the blog. I just wanted to check the stats one more time. I copied from yesterday's meeting.
Okay, well, let's just leave it on here for now and I'll put a line.
Okay.
All right, so the first topic is the overall priorities. And so we know that, and you can help with the video indexing if you want. So we know that this is not overall priorities work, right? So that's clear, right? Are you following me?
Sorry?
Focusing on getting organized and dealing with issues is not overall priority work. Are you following me here?
Yes.
Cool. So,
sorry, I was muted.
So what is this, right? So under overall priorities, we have like all the taxes and like all the FQN payroll, all that stuff, right? That needs to get done, all the legal stuff. There's also the major deadlines and deliverables coming up. We have a major deadline. Like there's a deadline basically today and tomorrow for all the legal stuff and the intake for the, we were trying to bring in another, $500,000 of funds for our client, right? And then that needs to happen like today, tomorrow. And then next week, right, we have all the taxes due. So there's major deadlines that need to happen that are part of the overall priorities. What this fits into is the idea of swamped priorities. Right, so swamped priorities are basically the concept that, you know, there is work that needs to get done that prevents all the other work from getting done.
All right, so I understand that these priorities, they have a due time, right? And they cannot be not prioritized. For example, what you were talking about taxes. So if there's a deadline, we all have to have like be hands on deck and working on taxes because we have a deadline, and that's our responsibility. Back you up in some of the in all of the tasks that need to be done on right?
Yeah, but my point here is that right now, not talking about getting work done means that we're not doing the overall priorities, and I want to make sure you understand where this comes in. And this comes in under swamped priorities.
Where then needs to get okay.
Because unless you're organized, you're not getting work done, and it's a problem for everything else that we're trying to do.
Okay.
So that's our goal. That's our goal here, is to try to get you organized so that you can help get everything else done, so that you can focus on the work. Okay?
Yes.
So any other questions in terms of like overall priorities and not doing them, and the swamp priorities, and you know, there can be other, you know, discussion topics that don't even relate to swamp priorities as well, right? But at least this relates to that. If we were focusing about your personal life, you know, that would relate to the number one overall, or the number two overall priority.
Okay.
Which is like making sure your life is all organized, because that could get in the way of getting work done too.
Yeah.
Anyways, this has nothing to do with your personal stuff. It has to do with the individual worker issues and like all that kind of stuff. So let's move on. Are any other questions on the overall priorities?
No, not for now.
All right, so responsibility versus a project. Let's start with what a responsibility is. What's a responsibility? What's a responsibility?
You're asking me?
Yes.
Responsibilities are all the tasks that need to be done in order to conclude a project. System is over a system, and system belongs to a project, right?
So I mean, I would do your best to just not use as few other terms as possible. So here you're using project, you're using system, you're using task, right? I would do your best to try to like not use any of the other vocabulary terms of types of work. We have types of work. You have project,
Yes.
or no, you have responsibility, right? And then you've got system, task, and system, process, and positions. So do you want to try one more time to explain a responsibility in terms of like what it is as opposed to what it isn't? Like, so don't use the word task, don't use the word project, don't use the word system.
Okay.
And we can skip that. Why don't we go to what a task is? Let's do a task. What's a task?
Task is something specific you have to do.
It's not very specific at all.
I cannot use task or responsibility or process.
No.
Task is a specific work you have to do which is part of a bigger.
Well, you're going to say one or more responsibilities, okay?
Okay.
Right, but the key thing here is the specific work. This is the definition of a task, is the specific work. What specific work is it? So basically, a task is a, you know, single individual act.
Activity.
It's a single individual act that is technically repeatable, right? Right. So you can repeat the same task over and over and over again. And there's a lot of tasks you only do once, right? So you have repeating tasks, and you have one-time tasks. The key thing is that even if it's a one-time task, it's still repeatable, right? A task is a single act that you do, and it's technically repeatable, right? So it's like, what would be an example of a task?
For example, weekly value tracking.
No, weekly value tracking is a responsibility.
Okay. Check the response form.
Okay,
that's like the minimum part of the responsibility. Shouldn't be the task.
Yeah, but there's checking the response form doesn't actually complete anything. So an individual completed act, right? It needs to complete something.
Okay, check response form in order to update with the value tracking ledger.
There we go. So check response form to update the weekly log, right?
Ledger or log, yeah, any of them.
Yeah, so that would be two separate tasks, right? These would be two separate tasks. That make sense?
Okay. Log and ledger, yes.
Right, so these are two tasks that are part of a single responsibility, which is weekly value tracking. Okay, so are we on the same page there? That sound pretty good?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so a task, in terms of how we define it, is a single individual completed task. So you can check the response form and update the week log over and over and over and over again, and it's very easy to train someone to do that. Right?
Right.
But it doesn't accomplish anything.
No, it's just a part.
So then what's a responsibility?
The responsibility would be update value tracking.
Well, weekly value tracking is basically
Weekly value tracking, yes.
Weekly value tracking. Sure, that's an example, but how do you define a responsibility? What is a responsibility?
What? Sorry?
What is a responsibility itself? Like what is the definition of a responsibility?
My definition for responsibility is something you need to do no matter no matter what happens, you have to accomplish it because you are already signed up for that.
Not really. No, that's not quite what we're going at. I mean, this is what I would define as a major responsibility. If you're tasked to a major responsibility, that means the organization is dependent on you completing it. Okay. That would be a major responsibility where the focus is on that you have to accomplish it or it's a huge problem, right? No matter what, right? But that doesn't necessarily define what a responsibility is. That just defines what a major responsibility is as differentiating it from a minor responsibility, which you don't really have to do, right? So minor responsibilities, you don't really have to do, because either someone else can do it or the organization is not going to stop functioning if it doesn't get done, right? So what would be an example of a major responsibility?
Major responsibility would be payroll.
Exactly. So example of major responsibility is payroll. If payroll doesn't happen, no one's going to be doing work, right? So that's a key, essential, major responsibility. Cool. So do you want to try again? How would you define a responsibility? In terms of the responsibility itself, not how important it is.
Responsibility Okay, you say that I cannot. We already defined minor and major, right?
Yeah, and I mean, if you need to use some of the other words, it's fine. Just try to say it in your own words. Just do your best.
Right, it's a daily set of tasks that you work on because you sign up for that.
Okay, so I mean, let's just get to the essence. You're basically saying it's a set of tasks. Okay, so that's a really good set of tasks. So it is true that a responsibility includes a bunch of tasks, but it's actually more than just tasks. It's kind of like the idea that the sum of all your parts aren't necessarily the sum of all your parts could be more than just the task itself, right?
Okay.
So can you think of something of weekly value tracking as far as the example that isn't a task?
That isn't a task.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, no. Like sending messages, sending emails, sending Slack, verifying the percentages. For me, those are all tasks.
Sure, but
that
can you
are
think,
part of our responsibility.
But we defined a task, a single individual completed task that you can do repeatedly over and over again, that it's a single one-time task that goes over and over. So what part of value tracking is potentially not repeatable?
That'll be quarterly value tracking?
No, that's not weekly value tracking. Just that's a different responsibility. Quarterly value tracking is a totally different responsibility. You know what I'm talking about?
Okay.
So this would be quarterly value tracking is a separate. So within just weekly value tracking, can you give an example of something that's not a task?
Something that's not is not included, is not necessary to accomplish the weekly value tracking?
No, it's just not repeatable.
Not repeatable.
It's not repeatable, and you can't train someone to just do it. You know?
Okay. No, I cannot think of something we don't repeat. I'm going over all the tasks and.
Okay, well here I'll give you an example. Like, why are you guys not sending messages?
Right now, because we need to discuss it with you and coming to an agree, and we modify the process.
Exactly. So it has to do with the processes and the systems and the problems that occurred, right? So basically the point of a responsibility is that it's more than just the task, right? So if something happens, right, and specifically I would say, basically the communication, the human side, communicating with people, dealing with problems, right? So if your responsibility is to update the weekly value tracking ledger, you need to update the weekly value tracking ledger no matter what is thrown at you. You understand what I'm trying to say?
Yes.
Like there's no task that can define what to do if someone comes and says, I have all these issues with my weekly value tracking and I don't know what to do, and this is a problem and that's a problem, and like hell, right? Like they don't communicate, they're not filling out the form correctly, they send you a bunch of Slack messages, you don't know how to respond, like you don't know what's going on. Like, so you see what I'm trying to say?
Okay. Kind of like, yeah, but it would be easier if you tell me which one will be a responsibility for you so I can extrapolate it.
That is the responsibility, right? Weekly value tracking includes a component that isn't a task, that is getting it done by all costs, not by all costs, but getting it done based on the fact that it needs to happen regardless of whether or not it fits into the pre-assigned repeatable tasks.
But it's repeatable because you do it every single week, no?
But what do you do? Like a task would be like, send the Slack message to core team members that didn't, and when I say the Slack message, the template Slack message to core team members that didn't fill out the form, right?
Yes.
But there's no task. There is no task that says what to do what to do when there is an issue with one of the people and they respond with questions and issues that you're not sure about. Does that make sense?
So as far as I understand this on responsibilities, because we're talking about responsibilities, it's something that you need to sort out. Okay, sort out because it only happens once.
No, a task.
And they're all
That's a
different?
task. A task is something that happens, a single item that's repeating over and over again.
Okay, task is repeated, right?
Mm-hmm.
Got it. Task is repeated.
So the point of the communication and the human side of dealing with problems is that there's no task to say and how you deal with issues. I mean, there's a million issues that could happen. You would have to make a million separate tasks to deal with every single million of all of the possible outcomes and issues of every single part of human communication. Are you following me or not?
Yes.
So my point here is that you would love to have just a task, right? And what would happen with the task is that if somebody responds, the task would be, if someone responds, then, send it up the chain, right?
Right.
Get help from a manager, right? And this is how most organizations work. This is how most businesses work. They don't assign people responsibilities. They assign people tasks. Are you understanding what I'm trying to say?
Yes. Right now, we have a lot of tasks that we do, right? And we have to take over responsibilities. We know how to do some tasks, but as we say, they are parts of their responsibility, right?
Yeah, well, that's because we don't give people tasks. Period. If someone just wants a task, they're not gonna work. We're gonna get rid of them and fire them. It's like not applicable.
Because it's easier to assign responsibilities because you have to do the task, no matter. Okay, like you don't tell us. You have to send the template Slack message. You have to send the template email message because that's all part of the responsibilities. Those are small tasks within the responsibilities, right?
Yeah. Exactly. So the point of a responsibility is that you just need to get the work done, right? We don't necessarily know all the tasks. Being responsible for something is creating the tasks, right? If you're truly responsible for something, you figure it out, you create the tasks, you make it work. Because you're responsible for it. You need to figure out how to get it done. You need to be a problem solver.
Right.
Hold on one second. So in your definition of a task, it's basically just a set of tasks, right? Set of tasks, right? But my point is that what a responsibility is actually more than a task. And of course, you're assigned to it. So do you want to try again? Let me get some water, too.
Okay.
You want to try again?
Yeah, sure. Well, as far as we were talking, you want me to define responsibility.
Yeah.
So, responsibilities make sure that we do our jobs, right?
That's interesting. Yeah, make sure we do our jobs, okay?
So, and how do we ensure about it? If we know how to do it, or if everybody knows what is their responsibility, what is the final goal
that's a system.
Gets all.
So a system is a goal. Systems are goals, right? But systems involve lots of processes right? That's like step 1, right? Step 2. So technically speaking, weekly value tracking is also a process. It's a responsibility and a process. Okay, because weekly value tracking has step 1, step 2, step 3, right?
Yes.
All systems, all processes, all positions, right? All projects are also responsibilities. Everything's a responsibility.
Okay.
Okay, so let me give it my shot at it.
Yes, please.
A responsibility is basically taking directive and ownership, commitment, follow through, and completing the work on time correctly. It results in some type of output or production. Right? So a task doesn't necessarily result in anything. There's no direct result of the task, right? Because a task is typically always part of something bigger, whereas a responsibility actually has results.
Yeah, but I don't know, but as far as I know, like this responsibility, this let's say obligation, yeah, that we need to perform and do it like satisfactorily. It has been assigned by someone, but it's like this obligation.
So you're assigning task, it to yourself. Like technically speaking, you're assigning it to yourself. You know, it's like we have a bunch of priorities to do, and you can choose which priorities you want to do, but you don't have to do anything. I mean, we're not requiring you to do anything that you don't want to do.
All right. So that's why you have to take on responsibility. Like you don't make someone do it, but everybody has to do it. Like take this responsibility and develop it, right?
Yeah, so it's taking directive, it's taking ownership, it's commitment, it's actually following through with it, figuring it out.
Like initiative, right? There would be initiative as well.
Exactly, taking initiative. So the essence of a responsibility is initiative, right? It's basically like figuring it out. Like you don't necessarily know what is going to happen or what you're doing, but because you have initiative, you're going to figure it out.
Okay.
So ideally, if you have a responsibility, you can go to someone else to get help and support in learning how to do it. But in the end, the essence of the responsibility is that you yourself are taking the responsibility on to figure out how to do it. So you can only get as much help as you can get from other people. But in the end, they're not responsible for it. You're responsible for it. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense. It's like you say, like by being like manager for responsibilities on the value tracking, it doesn't matter if I don't know it, but that's the conflict for me, because if I'm the person to point out, I should be like I should know the process, like the whole process of the tasks and that can be assigned in order to accomplish all this responsibility. And that's my conflict, because I feel like I don't know enough about that, like to answer to someone if asks me, right? You say that you can ask for help. Yeah, that's totally right. But it also says that you have to take initiative. I'm trying to take initiative by taking a look at the videos and try to understand by myself, but it's really hard when they're not like the videos are not there, or they're not as specific as they should. Or I think that if we train someone like by doing, as you say, is the best way to do it.
Exactly. Yes. Okay. So the last part of this is, what is a project? Do you understand what? Can you define what a project is? You there?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
A project. What's a project?
Project. The responsibility is part of project, right?
Yeah.
So we're scaling up. It's a set of tasks that are interrelated um, to execute of over time certain task, no, certain responsibility. I don't know what word to say there. So it's a planned set of tasks that they relate to each other within a time.
Certain areas of an organization.
Right.
Let's just say certain areas of an organization. So it's an area of work within an organization.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. So it's a set of responsibilities that are interrelated and execute over time in a certain area of work within an organization. So I think that's pretty good. I mean, it's basically, I would just say that it's like a project is, a distinctive component of an organizational implementation. So you organize responsibilities together into projects so that you can coordinate them better.
All right.
And project has oversight, right? So oversight is project. You have people who oversee projects, which are a whole slew of responsibilities, right? It can be dozens of responsibilities in a single project, and but you don't actually do them directly, right? You just have like oversight for them. But there is also a responsibility. Every project also has a responsibility, right? So it's basically the responsibility to organize and coordinate between all the responsibilities within the project. That make sense?
All right. Yes. Organize and coordinating between all responsibilities within the project.
Right?
Okay.
So every project also has a responsibility. Right?
Okay.
So I could never just tell you how to do that for every single project. It's going to be a little different in terms of implementing that particular responsibility. Okay. So do you more or less understand the difference between a project and a responsibility, which is why we just spent 20 minutes doing that?
Yes. The first thing I would say is that the responsibility is part of a project. Without the responsibilities, there cannot be a project because it's the sum of all its parts.
It's not necessarily a sum of all of its parts. Projects are a little more fragmented and dispersed. So let's look at, so in this case, we're talking about value tracking, right? So the example is value tracking, right?
Okay.
So as an example for value tracking, you would have past value tracking and weekly value tracking are not necessarily directly related, right?
but we use information. Oh, no, past value tracker. No.
Like you have past investor value tracking and weekly value tracking, right? You have value squared, right? So you have these different contexts. You have might relate to like token transactions. So you have all these different aspects of the project that aren't necessarily directly related. They do all technically relate to the master ledger, but you could have multiple ledgers.
Okay. Yes.
You know, so you could have ledger 1, have ledger 2, right? So the idea is ledger 1 doesn't necessarily have to have anything to do with ledger 2, but they could both be responsibilities under value tracking as a project. In value tracking, you always make blue. Tasks are always yellow. Oops. Yellow. And responsibilities are always like this tan kind of color. So are we pretty good on the difference between project and responsibility?
Yes. Well, wait. Tasks are yellow. Responsibilities are tan, and project is blue.
Yes. Okay, so let's go. Let's just really quickly review responsibility organizing. And I mean, we've gone over all these things many times before, so let's just do our best to get through it. But can you explain responsibility organizing and how it's different from responsibility?
Responsibility organizing is when you list all the responsibilities that need to be done, right?
No. That would be the responsibility of worker support, right? So be supporting workers on their responsibility, listing them all out. Like, so you can have a responsibility of actually supporting workers with the responsibilities, right? And organizing responsibilities, right? Organizing the list of responsibilities. You see what I'm saying?
Organizing the list of responsibilities.
You just said, to list out all the responsibilities. That would be organizing the list of responsibilities. That's a responsibility. Responsibility organizing is actually something different. These would be responsibilities, right? But each of these responsibilities can be organized. What does it mean to organize a responsibility?
Organizing responsibility. What is the meaning of that? You have to validate which tasks are more important than others, right?
No, that would be prioritizing responsibilities. That would be a separate responsibility, prioritizing responsibilities. That's what the overall priorities are, is prioritizing responsibilities. Totally separate responsibility. So, there's another problem here that needs to be addressed, and I think this is a topic, is that, people either are not watching the training videos or just don't understand something. I don't know what it is, but I mean, you should have watched the training video on responsibility organizing and read all the information about responsibility organizing multiple times by now. I mean, it's been months that we've been talking about it and putting it out there. So I mean, these aren't just like secret pop quizzes here. I mean, all the information is available, right? So for me,
that's what I've been doing. I've been trying to check those videos, but like there's something missing. I mean, I'm skipping some things. I don't know if I really don't understand it, or I couldn't understand the first time it's explained.
Well, do you know where you would find information about responsibility organizing, right? So I would start in the personnel support.
On the virtual drawer, yeah. Oh, yeah, you're showing your screen. Virtual drawer.
But I mean, do you know where it would be, the information about responsibly organizing?
Yeah, I actually use F3 to get faster to the link.
So here we have all of our FQN community network personnel policies and protocols, including independence levels, which is what we're going to talk about next, is the independence levels, right? So this goes over responsibility organizing. And technically, responsibility organizing is literally a type of position, right? And this is everything we have: project oversight, project coordination, responsibility organizing, and tasks.
Okay.
Right? And it explains what every single one of these are. Like, none of this stuff is like, new. So what is responsibility organizing?
Responsibility organizing is delegate all the responsibilities to people who want to take on these responsibilities and manage how they want to.
I feel like you're just guessing, right? Like you're like, all the information's there, and it's like, instead of looking it up and figuring it out, it's like, it feels like you're just guessing blindly. Like, I mean,
I read the document like twice, but actually I didn't memorize it.
Well, you look at it. So what's the number one thing in responsibility organizing?
Number one thing, as you say.
What did you just say? That responsibility organizing was delegating tasks, right?
Yes.
How would you define delegating tasks? What would you define that as?
If we have certain number of people and they're working for us, they're supposed to start taking those responsibilities, like signing up for them.
But what happens when you delegate a task?
I don't have to do it.
But what do you have to do?
If I delegate a task, that person is supposed to do it, and then that person is going to answer for that task that they're doing.
Sure, but what if they don't do it?
I will be the responsible for them if they don't do it, right?
If you delegate a task, that's called coordination, and you still have some responsibility, right? Does that make sense? So that's not responsibility organizing. That's coordination. That's worker coordination. Delegating tasks is worker coordination and actually taking responsibility. So you can't really delegate tasks without taking on some type of responsibility. Okay, so what is the most important thing, the number one thing in responsibility organizing?
Planning?
No.
I'm looking for the document, sorry.
Or you can just look at my screen.
Okay. Screen. Responsibility, to organize the responsibility. Name and description of the responsibility?
No.
Well, the first thing over there says no, we're not planning no coordination.
Information that would be stored of the doc for the responsibility. That's not the main thing of responsibility organizing. What is the number one thing for responsibility organizing itself? The top of the list.
A link to doc or links section.
No, that's the number one thing to organize the responsibility to do. What comes before that? What's the number one thing about all responsibility organizing?
I'm just reading that, I don't see it.
It's right here. I don't understand. It's right there. It's the first.
But I say no, we're not planning no coordination.
I heard exactly the opposite. I heard to delegate tasks and coordinate things. That's what I heard from you. Is to delegate tasks.
No, but I read it when you said that you were showing your screen.
Well, I didn't hear you because maybe you mumbled and you said it really, really fast. So you need to be really, really clear and straightforward about it. It's not work. It's not planning the work, and it's not coordination, right? You need to say things really clearly and so that it's legible or eligible, hearable, right? Which is the opposite of responsibility coordination. When you're coordinating a responsibility, you're actually doing the work of the responsibility. And it could be dozens of tasks, all the different things that need to get done. assigning a task, delegating the work, right?
Right.
Okay, so let's look at the example. So what would be responsibility coordination of weekly value tracking? And then you would have responsibility organizing for weekly value tracking. What's the difference?
On the responsibility coordination, I will have to do the tasks, right?
Yes. So what are the tasks?
The small tasks like check the responses, update the tracking log and tracking ledger.
Okay, cool. And so what about responsibility organizing?
On responsibility organizing, I have to delegate those tasks and as to people, as to the people that I delegate them, I ask them for a due date for that.
All right, so let's try reading. Let's just read this again. Responsibility coordination, responsibility organizing.
I think.
So if you're responsible for coordinating a responsibility, right, you can either do the freaking work yourself or you can delegate the work. It doesn't change the fact you're still responsible for it.
Okay. But for responsibility organizing, it's either no work or no planning, no coordination, no delegation. So that's confusing.
Why is it confusing?
Because it would be the opposite for responsibility coordination. On responsibility coordination, you actually have to work, you have to plan, and you coordinate the people that you're working with.
Yeah.
And delegate as well.
Yes, exactly. Responsibility organizing is not coordinating a responsibility. That's the whole point.
Okay, so what would be responsibility organizing?
Okay, that's what we're trying to cover. What you like? It's all written down there. Do you want me to just say it? You don't want to try to remember it or get any sense of what it would be?
I said what was in the document, but it would be better if you can explain it because, as I said, it's confusing. If it is the opposite of responsibility coordination.
I never said it was the opposite of it. It's just
no. I said it because on responsibility coordination you have to work on it because you are accountable for that. You have to plan it within your team or with your team, and you have to coordinate. And also you can delegate, but you will be held responsible for something as well.
Yeah.
You have some level of responsibility, and it says responsibility organizing. There is no delegation.
Yeah, you don't have to delegate anything. If you want to organize a responsibility, it has nothing to do with getting any work done at all. You don't have to delegate anything. You don't have to get any work done, right? All you have to do is organize the information of the responsibility, right?
Organize the information of the responsibility.
Organizing the information of the responsibility so it is easier to find.
So it's just a scheme. You have to like a blueprint.
I mean, a blueprint implies that it's very, very technical and organized and well done, right? That's not
yeah. Like if but I mean, it's like the blueprint of the things that you have to do because a blueprint is not a building.
Sure, but in your mind, the way that you're thinking, Jorge, is that I have to be an architect to be able to do responsibility organizing, and that's not correct, right? You can take on responsibility organizing for something, and just draw one little box, and it's perfectly fine because you help put one box, on a map that eventually will have thousands and thousands of boxes. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Like there's no completion to responsibility organizing. right? Like the whole way that you're talking about it is that it's a blueprint that it's completed at some point. There's no completion. It's never just perfect or complete. You can always organize. Responsibility can always be more and more organized.
Okay, it's more clear now. It's a little bit clearer, yes.
So with responsibly organizing, you need a link, right? It's going to link to a doc, or you're going to create a doc, right? Some responsibilities just need their own doc, right?
Right.
If you're going to be coordinating the responsibility, you're going to go to exactly the same place as if you're organizing the responsibility, right? There's no difference in the link and where you're going. It's just your role is totally different. If you are the coordinator of responsibility, you're going to actually do the work. If you're organizing the responsibility, you don't even really need to speak English. You literally could not have any idea what you're even reading, and you could still organize it. You don't need to know what the goal is. You don't need to know what's being accomplished. All you need to do is organize it, right? Which includes having the link with the document. And then you want to put the name, description of the responsibility, links to information about it, notes, indexing the information, link to the training videos, right? So you just go and pull the training videos out and copy and paste them. Anything that connects to that responsibility. Who knows how to do the responsibility, where you get more information about the responsibility, if you need help, right? Process systems that are connected to the responsibility, and then most importantly, what's missing, right? And this is the thing that I think that you are not connecting, is that you seem to always want everything to be perfect and complete, but that's not what it is all about. It's about simply identifying what's not complete is just as important as it being complete. There's no difference. If you're responsible for something, by identifying that there is a problem and noting that problem and documenting it is just as important as solving a problem.
Okay.
There's no difference, especially with responsibly organizing, because you don't need to do anything. So does that make sense? Or
yeah.
So try to give an example of what it would mean to do responsibility organizing for weekly value tracking.
Sorry, one more time.
Responsibility organizing for weekly value tracking. What would be an example of what that would mean, right? So we went over weekly value tracking, which would be the tasks, checking the responses, updating the tracking in Ledger. So if you were coordinating weekly value tracking, you would either check the responses, update the tracking ledger and log, or you would delegate someone else to do it, right? That's coordinating weekly value tracking. What would be organizing weekly value tracking?
I will have a document with all the links related to weekly value tracking and a list of steps. And then at the end, like a checklist for all the steps if they have been done, and if there was any problem, and to whom should we address to in order to fix problems.
Cool. Yeah. And do you need to know how to accomplish weekly value tracking to do that?
Actually, no.
No, you don't. So,
okay.
So what I'm trying to emphasize here is that there's a million things that you can do where you don't even need to know how to actually accomplish the task itself, right? And it's just as important as accomplishing the task. Because if our responsibilities aren't organized, then it's just 10 times more difficult to accomplish them.
Okay, yeah.
So, for example, you always tell me, I want training on everything related to this responsibility. It's like, if you were organized, you wouldn't ask me to do general training on anything. You would know exactly what the gap is. I need training on this specific component, that there's a gap in this responsibility that is missing, right? That's organizing responsibility. It's actually knowing where the gap is. What is the gap? What is missing? What is changed? Like, organizing responsibility, it doesn't require to actually know how to do it.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, it's quite more clear now.
So what I'm trying to tell you is that there's so much that you can do that you're perfectly capable of doing without knowing how to do everything. And we have 300 responsibilities, and each one of them needs to be organized.
Okay, when you say that we need to have our 5 responsibilities clear on our documents, I always check my main doc, and I get like primary responsibilities, and then I have monthly value tracking, weekly value tracking, quarterly value tracking, right? As you say, they are different, right? They are different because they are not. Okay, no, yes, these are related. Okay, they are related indeed. But it's like, if you say that we know like most of these things, what else can I add there? Because if you say that we don't have to know it, like we don't have to know the responsibility, if you want to just do responsibility organizing, right? I am lost here because I say, what are my responsibilities? Where are them? Because I have the project would be Excel value tracking, and they break into monthly, weekly, and quarterly value tracking.
Okay.
And you said that we are always missing responsibilities.
Cool. So let me just back up a second, and then we'll get into the independence levels, and we'll get into organizing your own main doc. Okay. But just really, really quickly, I want to ask this one last question here. Which of these two things, responsibility coordination or responsibility organizing, are more important for new recruits?
I think the responsibility coordination.
Why?
Okay, because they have to do the tasks. They need to learn how to do them.
Okay, so let's say you wanted to, you had a new recruit, Lilia, right? And there was, you wanted to delegate her a task, and there was literally absolutely nothing. We deleted all the documents and all the information and all the videos and everything that had to do with weekly value tracking. What would you do?
I will explain. I will explain her. I would have a session with her, and okay, yeah, I will try to put that on a document. I will make a new document with the steps.
And what is that?
Organizing.
That's responsibility organizing.
Okay.
So what's more important, responsibility coordination or responsibility organizing when it has to do with new recruits?
Organizing.
Responsibility organizing. Without being organized, you can't do anything. All right, so that's the context of what organizing is. Organizing is simply just getting all the information together so it's easy to basically educate other people and connect it and transfer it and do whatever you need to do with it. If it's not organized, then it's just a big mess and it's just tough. All right, so let's go to independence levels. Independence levels. And we can skip ahead a little bit to Jorge's responsibilities. So what? Let's cover level 3. So level 3, every person is every person must select 5 responsibilities. Okay. So what's the difference between level 3 and level 4? In relationship to these 5 responsibilities. So what's the difference between level 3 and level 4 in the context of these 5 responsibilities?
They have to have them listed and organized.
No, that's at level 3 should still have their list of 5 responsibilities and it should still be organized. You know, these should be listed on their main doc and clear and organized. So what's the difference between level 3 and level 4?
I was checking that on the spreadsheet. The level of responsibility, the level of independence.
No, in terms of responsibilities. Here, I'll just tell you. It's not a big deal, okay? So level 3, every person selects their 5 responsibilities. To get to level 4, you actually have to be signed off that you know how to accomplish 5 responsibilities.
Okay.
Right, so this is just you choose them. You select 5 responsibilities that you're interested in. This is like your interest, your desire. You know, you want to build, what do we call it? What was that word that we used? Initiative, right?
Yes.
So this is the beginning of building initiative to try to figure it out. Level 4 is like you did it. You accomplished and know how to do 5 responsibilities. So what level are you?
I'm in level 3.
Yeah. So what are you required to do? Level 5 is like 10 responsibilities plus a project and then some. So what are you required to do?
Sign off that I know how to accomplish those 5 responsibilities.
That's for level 4.
Yeah, I'm in level 3.
I know. So for level 3, all you need to do is just have 5 responsibilities that you're interested in. There's no expectation for someone of level 3. There's going to be a lot of people who are level 3 and never ever get to level 4. Right? Like there's no requirement to go to level 4. We pay everybody at level 3 and 4 exactly the same amount of money. There's no requirement. You're not going to get any less or more money or anything, whether you're level 3 or level 4. So it's perfectly fine to be at level 3. So my question is, at level 3, what are you required to do?
Level 3, as you say, sign up for responsibilities. I wanted you to check my document because I already have these responsibilities here, so I don't know what is missing.
I'm not saying there's anything missing. I'm just asking you where you're at. You know, like because you imply that there's a problem, and so I'm trying to get to the point that it's like you're doing everything required for level 3. Like there's no problem with your involvement. You see what I'm trying to say?
Okay, yes.
Yeah. So if you want to get to level 4, you want to get you organized, but that's totally separate. Like going to level 4 is not a requirement at all. And in fact, it's like the only real need to be at level 4 is if you want to schedule independent buddy teams, but it's like I don't know if you want to do that anyways. Right?
Well, actually, it's not something like I have dreamed of because I always like working like on a team.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a better team player, and not because I can delegate, but because I feel like sharing knowledge is even better than have it all it for you.
Well, I don't know exactly what that means, but an independent buddy team requires scheduling with at least one more person to schedule your buddy team. Right? No one said anything about working by yourself with no one else. That has nothing to do with it. It's about scheduling an independent buddy team separate from myself and other people who are like level 4, level 5. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I was trying to say that at this point, I feel like you have told me that I have some knowledge, and I'm on level 3, and I can do some things. I know these responsibilities, but actually I don't feel like really comfortable working on my own because sometimes I might skip something, but if I'm working on a body team, my body just can tell me, no, we can do it this way. I actually think that two hands thing even better than one.
Yeah, I definitely understand that you're thinking that way, but it doesn't really make sense in the context of like, you know, the goal of working with the buddy is to get help and make sure that, you know, questions are being answered and everything like that. But you should be fully able to complete the task on your own as well. I mean, and in fact, that's like the goal is that you have two people or three people in a buddy, and you're completing 2 to 3 times the amount of work because and you're being efficient because you're getting everything done, right? So that's always the goal. The only reason to be working together is because someone doesn't understand what's going on, right? Otherwise, you can be working on two separate tasks at the same time in the same buddy team, right? And you should be able to do both. And you should be able to get in a buddy team and start working immediately without anyone needing to do it for you, right? So, in the context of like the mental blocks, I mean, I think it's primarily, you know, some of your own doing, but it's like, you know, I was talking with Nellie and everything and trying to explain to her how it's really not that much more complicated. And also the process is it's really like the process, the learning process is that you get training, right? And then or you learn, right? You learn and then you do it, right? And you produce, you know, outcomes, right? So you have like your final products, and then you review with the group, and then you learn more, and then you do, and then you repeat. You know, see, this is basically just take it as far as you can. So you learn as much as you can. You do it. You produce the outcomes. You review it with the group, and then you learn, and you learn more. Right. So this step 4 seems to be the step that's like the biggest problem. Right. So you guys are stuck on step 3. You guys do work and you produce the outcomes. Right. But then you're not bringing it back to review. It's like you have this expectation that your work is supposed to be perfect all the time.
Okay, when it comes to review with group, which group? Like that means you and Steve, for example,
Like
Nelly and I were working on blogs, and we still have a question, but and we stop there. That will mean that. But when you say weekly main meeting, that'll be every 15 days. Can we do it like in a different session? Like, for example, now we're meeting right now. Let's say Nelly comes here and we start asking him questions.
Yeah, any buddy team, any weekly main meeting, right? Because like I feel like the beginning of the buddy team with you and Nelly, right? It feels like it starts as if, you know, I don't know how to do it. This is like too much. Like everything's a problem, and it begins as if like it's like you've already deflated and saying like you're not good enough to do the work, right? I mean that's how it feels to me sometimes, and it's just like, I mean we barely even started. You know, it's like you did great work. You know, there's, you know, of the 20 things you did, you know, 1 or 2 of them have a problem. Right? It's like why would we expect you to do like to have everything perfect every single time? It's like humans aren't. That's why we double check and triple check and quadruple check and quintuple check everything, because we're human, right? And we have to do it together as a team. That's why we're part of a team. So the review process and reviewing it, and obviously we're going to focus on the problem. So even though 90% of everything is correct, we focus on the 5%. You know, 95% is correct. We focus on the 5% that's a problem so that we can improve upon it. Right? But then you guys seem to think like, oh, everything's a problem because we're focusing on the problems. It's like, no. You know, 90% of everything you're doing is correct and is really, really good. You're doing an amazing job, right? It's just like, so I mean, ideally you would come into it being like, it's just part of the process. You know, of course we came to a roadblock. Of course you hit the end of as far as you could go with it, right? The other example I was trying to give Nelly is the idea that, you know, let's say you have 10 hours of training to do to learn, you know, a system. Right? Remember, the system is a complete goal.
Yes.
If I did 10 hours of training straight, what would happen? And it's what happens over and over again all the time. And it's basically like no one does anything. I train and I train again, I train more, and I do all this training, and then it doesn't happen. It doesn't.
Never practice it. Yeah.
The work doesn't get done. You know, so it's like why should I train someone 10 hours to understand every single little detail about everything, and then they don't even do like even a quarter of the work? Right? So if I spend 10 hours doing something, it wastes all my time, it wastes all their time, and then they only end up doing like 2 hours or one to 2 hours of the work. Do you follow what I'm trying to say?
Yes.
So
there's no reason to like report 10 hours training if you are not actually doing some output or doing the job, as you said.
Yeah. So if I do 1 hour of training, right, and then that 1 hour training results in, you know, 45 minutes of work, that's a much better result than doing 10 hours of training and getting 1 hour to, you know, 1.5 hours of work. See what I'm trying to say?
Okay. Yes.
So it's like you do an hour of training, you this would be 1/10 of the training needed, right? And then after it's completed, then you review and do another hour. Right? So the idea is that it just makes more sense, you know, to just train, you know, the components. So like, for example, if you look at current value tracking, there's 10 components. It would take 10 hours to train it all. I mean, we've only really gotten through 2 or 3 hours of the training involved to train all of current value tracking. But it's like we never seem to get beyond, you know, the weekly value tracking. It just like has and we just keep pushing against it over and over and over again. So the point that I'm trying to say here is that you don't need to know all 10 hours of the training in order to do a perfectly fine job, because you're just continually learning and continually pushing the boundary, and you get better and better and better at it.
All right. Okay.
And I don't think it's worth your time or my time to try to explain everything to you, right? To try to download and put everything in your mind all at once so that you know how to do everything perfectly typically doesn't even result in that result. Typically, it's just too much information and you can't even do it all. You know, and the actual amount of information that you hold is like even smaller percentage-wise. And so if we just do like a little bit and train you a little bit on specifically the most important thing that needs to be trained, like whatever the top priority is, whatever the top block is, whatever needs to be reviewed, wherever you currently are. I mean, you have at least 5 or 6 things going on, 5 to 6 minimum. Minimum, you have 5 to 6 active processes, learning processes, training and learning processes going on.
Okay.
Right, so you have value tracking, and even with value tracking, you have management, and you have like, you know, coordination or responsibilities. Right, so you have
coordination, yes.
Right, and we could even say responsibility coordination and responsibility organizing. So what else? There's a payroll support and verification.
Payroll support verification, yes.
There is recruitment that you're learning tons of things about. What else?
Sorry. Oh, wait. Okay.
We started some client relations. There's always investor relations,
Wow.
right? I think we've done a lot in documentations, and then tons of session support. Session support is huge.
Session support as well. Session support, I haven't done like much of that, I guess, because
You do
I have
this
only
all
helped
the
you
time.
like twice.
No, you do session support all the time.
Oh, okay. Yeah, with documents, yes.
Yeah, this is all like the positions during. This is like, you know, meeting notes, right? Documents, templates.
End of session value tracking.
Yeah, session value tracking, all that stuff. Session support is huge, right? You almost do more session support than anything else. So,
yeah.
Anyways, there's plenty of things that you're actively learning, right? Do you know all of these perfectly? No, you don't know all of them perfectly, but you know all of them a million times better than Lilia or Kanisha or anyone else, right? Oh, and there's all the finances stuff. There's endless finances too, right? And even the finances and, you know, taxes, accounting. I mean, you're definitely learning a lot of this stuff too, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I mean, my hope here is that basically you need, like, my goal is to get you in the mental state where everything's a process. It's all a process. You're going through these systems. The goal is to learn more and master a lot of these goals, these processes, and that could take years to master these things, right? But
Right.
then you're infinitely more educated than the new people coming in, and you have tons of information that you can share with them. But you have to be organized in order to share it, right? So
Yes,
the key is just working on trying to get you organized and get your responsibilities very, very clear in what they are and how they work. And then, but more importantly, to get your mental state in a state where it's like, where you currently are is okay. It's actually very good. You know, like there's not,
Thank you.
In my perspective, there's not like these big problems, right? It's like, you know, you've learned what you've learned in the time that you've had. You know, there's been some roadblocks and some bumps and issues and problems, but you know, you're learning. In fact, if you try to learn too much or too fast, you'll learn less. You know what I mean?
It will backfire on me.
It backfires. It's like everybody has their own natural pace of learning and accomplishing things and understanding them. And one of those steps is teaching. Right? So the more you concern yourself with teaching and training other people, the more you're going to hold yourself back. Because when you're teaching somebody else, it forces you to not only get organized, but to learn something even better. Right? So you want to basically just jump off the cliff. When it comes to like for me, one of my value systems, like one of the value systems that we talk about a lot, is the idea that the purpose of learning is to teach.
All right, I'm very good at teaching when that's what I do as well. Sometimes that's what I feel. It feels like I'm confused because I don't like teaching when I'm not 100 or at least 98% sure what I'm teaching.
Yeah, well, with us, you're gonna have to get over that because, you know, and I mean, I can say this a million times over. I don't even know what I'm doing. Right? If I needed to know 100% or 98% of every single thing I've done, I mean, I've never done this before. Right? I've never had 15 staff and we're dealing with all this. I've never done that before. I've never had a client where we're getting $10,000 a month and we're dealing with all these crazy things that they need done like every minute, right? Or doing a, you know, $50,000 payroll every couple of weeks. I mean, that's all brand new. You know, so it's like, but it's, I'm not worried about it. I'm not concerned about it. Like we know enough to figure it out, and we're working as a team, and so we're going to keep figuring it out. And whenever we run into a problem, we research it and we ask for help. But that doesn't change the fact that we're the ones responsible for it, you know? So we can ask for all the help that we want, but it doesn't change the responsibility, right? So, yeah, I mean, just like, it's kind of, I feel like with us, it's like, if you know a majority of the information, you should be ready to train someone else with the information that you have, even though you don't have
Right, Jay, can I call it a day right now? Do you know that the Pope is visiting Colombia and he's passing like 2 blocks from my house? So I really want to go and say hi to the Pope.
Cool, that's exciting. All right, well, yeah, I'll let you go.
Yeah.
You know, the next step here is just to like literally go through your list of responsibilities and organize.
I want to check if I can move on level 4 because just in case if I can, I can take on more responsibilities, or at least, as you said, start teaching.
Yeah, I mean, but you don't need to be level 4 to teach people. You just teach people because you can't not teach people. It's literally like you just hanging out with Leah, she's going to be learning from you. There's no way to get around that.
All right.
So anything you talk about with her, you know, it's. Anyways, I'll let you go. Let's you know, go through your main doc next time. We'll just keep getting into more and more details and.
Absolutely, yes, because as you can see, it's monthly value tracking, weekly value tracking, and you listed a set of tasks there and responsibilities that I was not aware I was doing, as a matter of fact.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's, again, it's just getting organized, right? You know, and we basically we just want like, don't even think about them being primary, just think of this big list of responsibilities, right? Just keep it simple, organized, you know. These are your list of responsibilities, right? And even so, I also would add like positions, right? Projects, right? We want to keep them separate and organized, right? So the exit value tracking is a project. Right? Position is the exit value tracking client manager. Exit liaison. Okay.
Okay. Yes.
So we'll get better at this. But anyways, we can, you know, you can leave this here just like that. But let's go through it more. And like, get calendar things, get scheduling, calendar. Yeah, there's lots of stuff here, dude. But again, these are not.
But it was not organized.
Yeah, but these again are also not responsibilities. These are basically projects.
Projects.
Right. So it's like it's not clear what you're doing. Right. So we need these need to be detailed, right? Updating the Google Calendar with the schedule, that's a responsibility, right? Calendar verification, that's a responsibility, right? Recruitment and offers, there's 30 responsibilities under recruitment. Payroll support, there's like 15, 20 different responsibilities that are part of payroll support. And again,
responsibilities are yellow, right?
No, responsibilities are beige.
Sorry.
Cool. Anyways, let's just go over that next time, dude. We'll be good.
Yes.
But I mean, you basically already have 5 right here that we could practically sign off on, you know? So I mean, I'm not even worried about you getting to level 4. It's literally just getting organized.
Yeah, that was my main problem, because I really wanted to get to this point. You're saying that I have knowledge about any responsibilities, but I was not aware of that.
Yeah. Cool. Anyways, I'll let you go and go see the Pope, and then we will check in.
Thank you. There's a live feed. If you want to check, this is nice. I'm gonna go see it.
I got lots of other work and stuff like that, but it's all good. We'll talk to you soon. Have a good day.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.